A soft alien breeze swept across the grand stage, adorned with glimmering lights and mysterious artifacts from distant worlds. This was no ordinary beauty pageant. Here, under the starlit sky of a planet known only as Zelaria, a group of green skinned alien women gathered, each one possessing a unique allure that marked her as a contestant in the most prestigious event of their kind. This was the Celestial Convergence, a pageant not only to showcase beauty, but to choose a queen with a singular purpose, a duty that held the weight of an entire civilization on Celeria, the race of tall, elegant beings with emerald skin and elongated, slightly pointed ears was becoming endangered. Despite their advanced genetics, their population was dwindling. Scientists and elders had deliberated for years seeking a solution. And so an alliance was formed with humans, a distant but compatible species. Together, they sought to create a union that would revitalize both worlds, blending strength with beauty and intelligence with compassion. But the chosen one could not be any ordinary Exilarian. She had to be exceptional both in beauty and wisdom. This pageant, a rare event on Sileria, was intended to reveal that very individual. The crowd fell silent as the opening ceremony began. Beams of light, refracted from Xyleria's crystalline sky, cast shimmering colors across the grand arena, illuminating the contestants who stood in a line, each radiating confidence. Tall and slender, with hair cascading down their backs in shades of obsidian and sapphire, these alien women each bore the traditional marks of their kind: eyes that gleamed with an ethereal intelligence, slightly pointed ears that betrayed their origins, and a demeanor both regal and enigmatic. Among them stood Lele, one of the youngest contestants. Her features, though delicate, held a strength that set her apart from the others. Her long, jet black hair flowed down her back, and her eyes were filled with both curiosity and a hint of hesitation. Layla had not entered this pageant out of personal ambition. In fact, she was uncertain if she was ready for such a responsibility. She was deeply aware that winning would mean forging a bond with a human, a being she had only heard stories of, never encountered. She couldn't help but wonder, would they understand each other? Could their worlds truly blend as seamlessly as the elders envisioned? As the first round of competition commenced, the contestants took turns introducing themselves to the audience and the panel of elders. Layla watched as her competitors, each dressed in shimmering outfits that seemed to be crafted from the very essence of Zalaria's nature, spoke of their hopes and dreams. Some exuded confidence, flashing charming smiles and speaking with bold conviction. Others shared personal stories of hardship and resilience, painting themselves as warriors prepared to lead their race into a new era. When it was Layla's turn, she felt her heart pound in her chest, but her face betrayed nothing of her inner turmoil. She stepped forward, her long hair glinting under the lights, and introduced herself with quiet grace. Her words were simple but sincere. Greetings, esteemed elders and honored guests. My name is Layla. I stand before you not only as a representative of my family, but as a seeker of truth. I am here not to prove my beauty, but to understand what it means to bridge two worlds. If chosen, I vow to embrace this journey with openness and honor. Her voice carried through the hall, soft yet resolute. There was a moment of silence before the crowd erupted into applause. Layla returned to her place, her cheeks flushed. She hadn't expected such a response, and a small spark of hope began to ignite within her. Perhaps, she thought, she was ready for this challenge after all. The initial round ended, and the contestants were escorted off the stage to prepare for the next phase. Layla found herself in a spacious, ornately decorated chamber where the other contestants mingled, some sharing laughs, others quietly rehearsing their speeches or studying themselves in mirrors. Despite the camaraderie that the competition had fostered, Layla could feel the tension simmering beneath the surface. Every contestant here wanted to win, and for many, the prize meant more than honor. It was a path to personal glory and an escape from their mundane lives. As she watched her competitors, Layla couldn't ignore the subtle glances of rivalry directed her way. A few of the contestants whispered among themselves, casting quick, assessing glances in her direction. Layla could sense their wariness. She was one of the few contestants who had caught the attention of both the elders and the audience, but she paid them no mind. She knew her purpose and was determined to stay true to it, regardless of how the others perceived her. Soon, a chime rang through the chamber, signaling the beginning of the second round. This segment would test their intelligence and empathy qualities the elders deemed essential for bridging two vastly different worlds. The contestants would face a series of questions from the panel, and their answers would reveal not only their wisdom, but their capacity for understanding. Layla's turn came again. One of the elder judges, a wise and stoic figure known for his insight, looked at her intently before asking, Layla, imagine a life with a human, a being whose customs, language, and values differ greatly from ours. What would you say is the most important quality needed to make such a bond succeed? Layla took a moment to gather her thoughts, her gaze steady as she looked into the elder's eyes. She thought of the stories she had heard of humans' emotions, their unpredictable nature, and their intense connections with one another. She also thought of her own world, where logic and harmony reigned supreme. Respect, she answered, her voice calm yet passionate. Respect for our differences and our similarities. While customs and language may separate us, the essence of respect, the ability to honor another's truth, can bridge that gap. I believe that if we start with respect, understanding will follow and our bond will become a partnership rather than a duty. The elder nodded approvingly, and a faint smile crossed his face. Once more, the crowd responded warmly, and Layla felt a surge of confidence. She could sense that her answer had resonated with both the judges and the audience, but her moment of triumph was short-lived. As she returned to her place, she caught a glimpse of another contestant, a strikingly beautiful alien named Zara, whose face betrayed a look of displeasure. Zara was known for her charisma and was a favorite to win, but Layla's strong answers seemed to have shifted the scales. As the evening wore on, Layla found herself reflecting on her journey so far. She had never thought of herself as a leader, nor had she imagined standing before her people, sharing her deepest beliefs. But something within her had awakened a sense of purpose that transcended her personal fears. She had come here unsure of her role, but now she felt the pull of destiny. She could no longer ignore the possibility that perhaps she was meant for this. When the final question segment ended, the contestants were led back to their quarters to rest. Layla lay awake that night, her mind racing with thoughts of the future. The possibility of being chosen to bridge two worlds had become real tangible. She imagined the life that awaited her, the challenges, the sacrifices, and the bond she would have to forge with a human. A flicker of fear rose within her, but it was quickly overshadowed by a deep-seated resolve as dawn broke over Exalaria, painting the alien sky with hues of violet and gold. Layla knew that her journey had only just begun. She was no longer merely a contestant in a pageant. She was a contender for something much greater, a role that would shape the future of her race and forever alter her own destiny. The contest entered a more intense phase as the day wore on, and each round revealed the drive, determination, and occasionally desperation of the contestants. Layla felt the weight of every glance and whispered remark as tensions heightened. The prize, a path to bond with humanity and secure a future for their kind, had ignited a fierce competition among the contenders. For some, it wasn't just about honor, but a means of securing influence, recognition, or escape from their own past. The chamber where contestants awaited their turns had grown quiet and tense. Zara, a captivating contestant with striking features and long silver hair, cast frequent, piercing glances at Layla. She was well known for her strong speeches and confident presence, often catching the attention of the judges and audience alike. Yet, Layla's unexpected rise in favor had disturbed the balance Zara once took for granted. Zara's subtle but persistent attempts to undermine Layla's confidence had not gone unnoticed. It became clear that this contest had begun to shift from a display of talent to a strategic battle. A test of intelligence and adaptability was announced, a challenge that required each contestant to solve a complex problem under the watchful eyes of the elders. The task involved understanding the intricate details of Xylarian diplomacy and the unique cultural nuances of humanity, something that went far beyond looks or charm. Layla felt the challenge resonate with her. She had spent much of her life quietly observing, contemplating the broader meanings and responsibilities that came with power. As she faced the judges, she felt an unmistakable spark of purpose. She moved through each step thoughtfully, answering questions about the subtle balance between Solarian principles and human values, highlighting the importance of compassion and resilience. Her answers seemed to reveal her inner strength and drew approving nods from the elders. Zara, however, approached her turn with an impressive assertiveness. Her answers were precise, almost rehearsed, speaking of tactics and the importance of strategic dominance in any alliance. Though her responses were articulate, there was a cold efficiency to her approach, one that reflected a certain detachment from the meaning behind the competition. Layla observed how Zara's answers stirred mixed responses among the audience. Some were impressed by her unwavering confidence, while others seemed to grow wary of her assertiveness. As Layla and Zara returned to their seats, an elder turned to them with a question meant to gauge their insight and empathy. What, in your opinion, is the single most valuable quality for establishing a bond with another race? Zara was quick to respond, her voice resonating through the hall. Trust. To trust is to secure loyalty. In any alliance, loyalty is paramount. Without it, no bond can withstand the challenges of time and trial. Her gaze held a steely determination, her answer definitive. She glanced toward Layla, clearly expecting her to falter under the pressure. Layla considered Zara's response, but chose a different path. She allowed herself a moment to breathe, feeling the weight of the question. Her voice, though softer, held a sincerity that seemed to pierce the silence. Patience, she said thoughtfully. True connection requires patience. Trust and loyalty cannot be forced. They emerge when both sides are given the time and space to understand each other. Patience allows us to see beyond our differences and truly accept one another. Her words settled over the hall like a gentle breeze. A quiet murmur rippled through the audience, and even the judges exchanged subtle nods. Zara, on the other hand, looked displeased, her jaw tightening as she processed Layla's answer following the intelligence round. The contestants were given a brief respite. Layla used this time to reflect, retreating to a secluded corner of the grand chambers. She could feel the energy of the competition tension mingling with the excitement, anticipation laced with unease. But before long, her quiet was interrupted by Zara, who approached with a controlled smile. Interesting choice of words back there. Layla, Zara said, folding her arms. Her tone was laced with something sharp, something that echoed the intensity of their rivalry. Layla met Zara's gaze calmly. I spoke what I felt was true, she replied. This isn't just a competition to me. It's a chance to find meaning in a duty none of us can truly predict. Zara raised an eyebrow, her smile fading. You're naive if you think sincerity alone will get you anywhere in this contest. The elders want strength, conviction, and loyalty. This isn't about some poetic vision of unity. This is about survival. Layla paused, considering Zara's words. She could sense the hardness beneath Zara's exterior, the drive that had likely carried her through life's challenges. But Layla also knew that conviction wasn't about ruthless ambition. It was about finding balance, a principle deeply ingrained in her own beliefs. You may be right, Layla said softly, choosing her words carefully. But without understanding, survival becomes hollow. I believe our future deserves more than just strength, it deserves compassion too. Zara's expression grew cold. We'll see how far that gets you, she said before turning away, her words laced with a finality that signaled the depth of their divide. The next day marked the beginning of the penultimate rounds, designed to test endurance and emotional resilience. Each contestant would undergo a simulated experience meant to test their reactions to conflict and change a challenge that mirrored the complexities of forming a true partnership with a being from another world. Layla's simulation was intense, confronting her with visions of a distant Earth, bustling with life yet rife with chaos. She experienced flashes of humanity's history, moments of their triumphs and failures, their resilience, and their complexities. The experience was overwhelming but deeply humbling. It reminded her of the immense responsibility that would fall on her shoulders if she were to bridge these two worlds. She emerged from the simulation visibly moved, her mind racing with thoughts and reflections. The simulation had shaken her deeply, but it also reaffirmed her belief that patience and empathy were essential. In contrast, Zara's simulation was different. Her responses were calculated, quick to adapt to each challenge. She tackled every twist with a fierce precision that impressed the judges. She seemed almost untouched by the experience, her demeanor as calm and controlled as ever, though Layla noticed a flicker of something in her eyes, a hardness, a deep resolve. Zara had faced her simulation with a warrior's mentality, but Layla wondered if she had allowed herself to truly feel the gravity of the mission. Later that evening, as the contestants gathered for the announcement of the top finalists, Layla felt a mix of anticipation and tension. The other contestants stood in tight groups, some whispering quietly, others too lost in their own thoughts to notice anyone else. Zara, however, stood alone, her gaze fixed ahead, her expression unreadable. The names of the top three finalists were called, and Layla's heart skipped as her name echoed through the hall. She had made it to the final round, alongside Zara and another contestant, a soft-spoken but intelligent Xylarian named Anara, known for her thoughtful insights. The announcement was met with applause, but Layla could feel the sharp, unspoken tension between her and Zara. They were now the two strongest contenders, each representing a different approach, a different vision for the future. Layla's focus on understanding and patience clashed sharply with Zara's emphasis on strength and loyalty. Yet, the end goal was the same: to be chosen as the ambassador, the one to bridge two worlds. As the contestants were led back to their quarters for the night, Layla felt a strange weight settle over her. She had survived the initial rounds, had navigated Zara's confrontations and the challenges thrown her way. But the final round awaited a culmination of all their trials, a test that would determine who among them would carry the responsibility of Xelaria's future. That night, Layla found it difficult to sleep. Her thoughts drifted to the human she would meet if she won, the life they would share, and the legacy they might create. She wondered about the sacrifices she would have to make, the dreams she would have to leave behind. And yet, amid her doubts, a deep resolve began to form within her. She knew that, despite the difficulties, she wanted to be part of something that would redefine her race's history. The final day dawned with an air of anticipation and a hint of unease. The contestants were given a moment to reflect before the last round. Zara approached Layla one final time, her expression hard but carrying a hint of respect. "Tomorrow, one of us will be chosen," Zara said, her voice even. "Whatever happens, I hope you're ready for what comes next." Layla met her gaze, sensing a rare sincerity beneath Zara's competitive exterior. I am, she replied quietly. I may not approach this as you do, but I believe in what this mission could mean for us all. Zara nodded, a slight smile crossing her face. Then may the best woman win. With those words, they parted, each preparing in her own way for the challenges that awaited. Layla felt a quiet calm settle over her, a certainty that whatever the outcome, she had stayed true to herself and her vision. As dawn broke over Xelaria, the anticipation in the air was palpable. The final rounds of the celestial convergence were upon them, and the atmosphere in the grand hall was charged with tension and excitement. This was the round that would push the contestants beyond beauty, beyond intellect, and test their capacity for resilience, adaptability, and spirit. Every participant was aware that the challenges ahead would reveal their deepest qualities and determine who among them was truly ready to bridge two worlds. Layla, Zara, and Anara, the top three finalists, were led to a secluded part of the arena where the final trials would unfold. Each of them wore a serene but determined expression, masking the internal storms they felt. Their purpose was clear, yet each woman held a different vision for the role she sought. The first challenge was designed to test emotional intelligence and conflict resolution. It simulated an intense, realistic scenario involving cultural misunderstandings between humans and Xylarians. The contestants would need to navigate delicate negotiations and find solutions to bridge the gap between the two races' customs and values, all while maintaining empathy and clarity. Layla was called to begin, stepping forward with a calm but steady resolve. The elders explained the scenario. A miscommunication had led to a fence between a Xelarian diplomat and a human ambassador, and the tension had escalated to the point of threatening their alliance. Layla was to step in and attempt to resolve the conflict diplomatically. She took a deep breath, immersing herself in the simulation. She approached the diplomat and the ambassador with patience, listening to their grievances without interrupting. The human ambassador spoke of the difficulty in understanding Xelarian protocols, while the Xelarian diplomat emphasized the importance of tradition and respect. Layla addressed both calmly, drawing on her belief in patience and understanding. Understanding does not require agreement, she said, looking between them. What we need is mutual respect. We may have different customs, but it's the effort to honor each other's truths that will keep us united. Her words had a calming effect on both sides. She facilitated a dialogue that allowed each party to express their perspectives without defensiveness. The elders watched with approval as Layla deftly navigated the situation, her empathy and diplomatic skills shining through. When it was Zara's turn, her approach was different. She addressed the issue with assertiveness, emphasizing the need for structure and clear boundaries in all interactions. While her style was less empathetic, her confidence and control won over the human ambassador, who valued straightforwardness. The Excelarian diplomat, however, seemed uneasy, sensing a rigidity that left little room for cultural nuances. Lastly, Anara approached the situation with a calm, reflective demeanor. How she appealed to both parties by sharing stories of unity from Zalarian history, illustrating how past leaders had navigated similar misunderstandings. Her storytelling softened the tension and created a bridge of shared experiences. Though her approach was less direct, it carried an emotional resonance that resonated with the audience. As the simulation ended, Layla, Zara, and Anara returned to their seats, each processing their performance. Layla felt a quiet satisfaction, yet she also recognized Zara's effectiveness and Anara's unique approach. It was clear that each of them had their strengths, and the final decision would not come easily. The second challenge was one of endurance. The contestants were placed in an immersive virtual simulation of Earth, where they would experience the physical and emotional strains of adapting to a different planet. The test was designed to gauge their adaptability and resilience in a completely foreign environment. Layla found herself amidst a bustling city scene, the noises and unfamiliarity overwhelming her senses. She could feel the weight of gravity on her limbs, the air thick and strange compared to her own world. But rather than resisting, she allowed herself to adapt slowly, observing the humans around her, noting their energy, their resilience in the face of chaos. All right, so chaos. She realized that this was a world of contrast, harmony amid disorder, joy in the face of struggle. Her mind raced as she moved through the crowded streets, the simulation pushing her to confront her own vulnerabilities and adaptability. At one point, she became lost, surrounded by loud, unfamiliar sounds, but she drew upon her inner calm to regain her focus and find her way. As she did, she felt a surge of empathy for the humans she had encountered. Despite the differences, there was something undeniably shared between them, a desire to find meaning, to persevere. Zara's experience was different. The simulation drew her into a series of challenges that required quick thinking and physical prowess, from navigating busy intersections to handling unfamiliar technology. Zara tackled each challenge with precision, her survival instincts taking over. She adapted rapidly, but her approach was pragmatic and detached, seeing her surroundings as obstacles to be overcome rather than experiences to embrace. Meanwhile, Anara found herself overwhelmed by the intensity of the simulation. She struggled to keep pace, her gentler nature feeling strained in the harsh, fast paced environment of Earth. Yet she showed remarkable insight, often pausing to observe rather than react, finding beauty in the small details others might overlook: a street musician, the laughter of children. Though she didn't adapt as swiftly, her sensitivity allowed her to connect emotionally with her surroundings. By the end of the simulation, the contestants were visibly drained. Layla felt a profound shift within her, as though she had glimpsed the complexity of the life she might one day share with a human. She had seen both the beauty and the chaos of Earth, and it had only deepened her resolve to approach this union with patience and respect. The third and final challenge was one of personal revelation. Each contestant would be asked a deeply personal question by the elders, one that would require them to confront their own insecurities and motivations. This test was meant to uncover their true selves, to see past the facades they might have presented thus far. Layla stepped forward first, her heart pounding as she faced the elders. One of them leaned forward, his gaze piercing. Layla, if you are chosen to represent our race and forge a bond with humanity, you will face sacrifices. You may lose parts of yourself in the process. What are you willing to give up for the future of Zalaria? The question hung in the air, and Layla took a moment to gather her thoughts. She thought of her family, her peaceful life, and the dreams she had harbored quietly, far from the spotlight. But she also thought of the purpose she felt growing within her, the sense of destiny that had drawn her to this competition. I'm willing to give up my comforts, my certainty, she replied softly, her voice carrying a strength that surprised even herself. But I will not sacrifice my integrity. I believe that a true bond cannot be built on deceit or coercion. If I am chosen, I will be true to who I am, even if that means facing hardship. For I believe that only by staying true to ourselves can we build a future worth living. The elder nodded approvingly, a faint smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Next was Zara, who faced her question with her usual poise. Zara, power and loyalty are qualities you value deeply, but in forming a bond with a human, you may encounter qualities you view as weakness. How would you respond to such traits? Zara's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, an unguarded emotion flickered across her face. I would lead by example, she replied, her voice firm. Humans may be flawed, but they can learn. If I am chosen, I will teach them strength, discipline, and resilience. They will see that we are not to be taken lightly, and they will respect us for it. Her answer was met with thoughtful silence from the elders. It was a confident response, but there was a rigidity that hinted at her difficulty with vulnerability, a trait that might pose a challenge in forging a genuine connection. Finally, Anara stepped forward, her eyes reflecting a quiet strength. The elder's question for her was gentle yet probing. Anara, empathy is a gift you hold dear. But empathy can also bring pain, especially in a union with those who do not share our way of life. How will you protect your heart while staying open? Anara's voice was soft but resolute. I will carry the pain, for it is a part of the bond. To truly connect with another, one must be willing to feel deeply. I would rather face heartache than lose the ability to understand. I believe that compassion is not a weakness, but a strength that will sustain us in times of darkness. The audience seemed moved by her response, and the elders exchanged glances, clearly impressed by Inara's willingness to embrace vulnerability. As the final challenge ended, Lele, Dara, and Anna returned to their quarters to await the decision. The three women, each exhausted yet deeply reflective, shared a rare moment of silence. Despite their differences, they understood that they had been tested not only by the competition, but by themselves. They had confronted their own fears, desires, and visions for the future. Layla felt a sense of calm settle over her. She knew that whatever the outcome, she had stayed true to herself. She had seen a world unlike her own, had glimpsed the complexities of humanity, and had found a renewed purpose in the union her race sought to create. Her journey here had not only been a test of skill, but a revelation of who she truly was and what she believed. As they waited, Zara looked over at Layla, her gaze softened by the trials they had endured. Whatever happens, Zara said quietly, we've given everything we could. Layla nodded, a small smile forming on her lips. Yes, we have. In that moment, the rivalry faded, replaced by a mutual respect forged through their shared journey. They each knew that the decision was no longer in their hands, and for the first time, Layla felt a sense of peace. She had embarked on this path to seek understanding, and in doing so, she had found her own strength. The announcement was imminent, and each of them held her breath, waiting for the words that would change one of their lives forever. The tension in the arena was almost tangible as the finalists stood before the Grand Assembly, waiting for the announcement that would define the future of Zalaria and its fragile alliance with humanity. Layla's heart pounded in her chest as she tried to keep her composure, feeling the eyes of the audience, the elders, and her fellow contestants on her. Zara and Inaro stood beside her, each maintaining a poised exterior, though Layla knew they must be feeling the same rush of anticipation and anxiety. The head elder stepped forward, his expression solemn, and addressed the assembly in a voice that resonated with authority and gravity. Today, we witness the conclusion of the Celestial Convergence, a ceremony unlike any other, for its purpose transcends mere beauty or intellect. Today, we entrust our future to one who will carry the weight of our people's hopes, bridging worlds and uniting our destiny with that of humanity. A hushed silence fell over the arena, every word intensifying the anticipation. Layla's mind raced back over the trials they had faced, each round a test of character, resilience, and an understanding. She had poured her heart into every answer, every action. But even now, a flicker of doubt threatened to undermine her confidence. The head elder's gaze swept over the finalists, lingering on each of them in turn. Then, with a gravitas that sent a ripple through the audience, he spoke the name, Layla. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. The sound of her name echoed in her mind, and the reality of what had just happened slowly sank in. The crowd erupted in applause, yet everything around her seemed muted, distant, as if she were trapped in a dream. She glanced at Zara and Inara, each of whom held a look of mixed emotions: respect, sadness, and perhaps relief. Layla's legs felt unsteady as she took a step forward, her gaze locking with that of the elder. He nodded, acknowledging her accomplishment and the journey she had taken to reach this point. With a deep breath, she composed herself, letting the weight of her new responsibility settle over her. This is not simply a victory, it was a commitment to something much larger than herself. But just as the applause began to fade, a voice cut through the silence. It was Zara. Wait, her tone was controlled, yet there was an unmistakable edge of defiance in it. She stepped forward, her gaze unwavering, and addressed the elders directly. Before we proceed, I request to speak. The elders exchanged glances, clearly taken aback by her interruption, but the head elder nodded. Granting her permission, Zara turned her gaze to Layla, her expression intense. I do not dispute your decision, elders, nor do I question Layla's capability, but I believe there is something else that must be considered, something that has not yet been tested. A murmur spread through the crowd, and Layla felt a surge of tension. She had expected that Zara might challenge her, but not like this. She met Zara's gaze, searching for an explanation. Zara took a steadying breath before addressing the assembly. We have seen each contestant's strengths, but I believe that to truly ensure a bond with humanity, there must be a final test, one that proves Layla's resolve to face not only external challenges, but also the inner conflict that such a union will bring. The head elder raised an eyebrow. What do you propose? Zara's voice was steady, calm, yet fierce. I propose a trial of emotional endurance. We know that humans are complex, often unpredictable in their emotions. They are a race of passion and sudden shifts in intensity. I believe that a true representative for our people must be prepared to withstand emotional conflict, both their own and that of another. This bond will not be easy, and it would be wise to ensure that Layla has the fortitude to carry it. Layla felt a wave of apprehension. This trial was unexpected, and Zara's motives were unclear. Was she genuinely concerned, or was this an attempt to undermine Layla's victory? The head elder looked thoughtful, considering Zara's work. He nodded slowly, then turned to Layla. Layla, you have proven your intelligence, empathy, and resilience. Yet this task you face is indeed one that will test your inner strength in ways that no trial thus far has. Are you willing to undergo this final test? Layla swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the decision. She could sense the anticipation in the air, the eyes of her people waiting to see how she would respond. Though she was uncertain of what this final test would entail, she knew that she could not refuse not if she wished to prove herself fully. Yes, she replied, her voice unwavering. I am willing. The elder nodded. Very well. The trial will take place here under the watchful eyes of Celeria. You will face a series of emotionally charged scenarios designed to challenge your patience, empathy, and adaptability. You must hold your composure and seek understanding even in the face of discord. As the trial began, a holographic simulation was activated, surrounding Layla with realistic projections of human interactions. The first scenario unfolded before her. A human man, visibly distressed, argued passionately with his partner over a miscommunication. Their words were sharp, their emotions raw, and Layla felt the intensity of their disagreement. She watched the exchange, feeling their frustration, and allowed herself to empathize with each of them. Their hurt stemmed from a place of misunderstanding, of unmet expectations, and unspoken fears. Taking a breath, she imagined herself as part of this scene, feeling the emotions wash over her while trying to find a point of calm. Patience, she reminded herself, recalling the value she had held dear throughout the competition. She approached the simulation with a spirit of understanding, focusing on listening and providing a space for the emotions to settle, for clarity to emerge. Gradually, the scene shifted, the argument dissolving as the simulation responded to her approach, but the trial was not over. But the trial was not over. Another scenario appeared: a young human woman mourning the loss of a loved one. Her grief was palpable, filling the space with a sorrow that Layla had never personally experienced. She felt the woman's pain acutely, and for a moment it overwhelmed her. Her own heart aching with the weight of it, Layla reached out, her voice soft and comforting, though the woman could not truly hear her. She did not try to offer solutions or advice, but simply sat with the grief, allowing herself to feel it without judgment. The scene eventually faded, but the lingering sorrow left an impression on her, a reminder of the depth of human experience. The final scenario was one of betrayal. A human man confronted his friend, accusing him of deceit and broken trust. Their argument was charged with bitterness, anger seething between them. This was a complexity Layla had not expected: the sharp sting of betrayal, the erosion of trust that could rupture even the strongest bonds. Layla felt the anger, the bitterness, and the sadness woven into the argument. She knew she could not resolve it easily. This was not a conflict that could be solved with mere words. Instead, she sought to understand the emotions beneath the anger, to sense the pain that lay at the heart of the betrayal. Slowly, as she let herself feel their pain, the scenario softened and the figures faded away. As the trial concluded, Layla was left alone on the stage, feeling drained yet somehow stronger. The emotional turbulence had tested her patience, empathy, and resilience in ways she hadn't imagined. She had faced the raw spectrum of human emotions, had immersed herself in their pain, joy, and complexity, and emerged with a deeper understanding. The head elder looked upon her with approval, his gaze reflecting a quiet respect. "You have faced the storm of human emotion and have not faltered. You have proven that you possess the strength to endure both the external and internal trials that lie ahead." Zara watched her, her expression unreadable. Layla sensed a shift in her rival, a hint of acknowledgement, perhaps even respect. Whatever Zara's motives had been, Layla understood that this final trial had only served to deepen her conviction and prepare her for the path ahead. The elder raised his hand, calling the assembly to attention. Layla has not only proven herself capable, but has shown that she possesses a heart open to understanding, a mind willing to endure, and a spirit that does not waver in the face of adversity. She is hereby chosen as the ambassador of Exilaria to humanity, the bridge between our worlds. The crowd erupted into applause, their voices rising like a wave of support that filled Layla's heart. She glanced at Zara, who offered a faint nod, a silent acknowledgement of her victory. Anara, too, smiled warmly, her support genuine and unclouded by rivalry. As Layla stood on the grand stage, the reality of her journey settled over her. She was no longer a mere contestant, but a chosen representative, entrusted with a duty that would change the course of her life and that of her people. The path before her was uncertain, filled with challenges she could not yet foresee, but she felt a sense of peace, a quiet assurance that she was ready. The elders approached her, one presenting her with a ceremonial sash that marked her as the ambassador. Its intricate design shimmered with symbols of unity and connection, a visual representation of the bond she would forge. As they draped it over her shoulders, Layla felt the weight of the responsibility and the pride that came with it. The ceremony concluded, and as the crowd began to disperse, Layla caught a glimpse of Zara watching her from a distance. Their eyes met, and Zara offered a small, respectful nod. Whatever rivalry had existed between them had softened, replaced by a mutual understanding. In that moment, Layla understood the true purpose of the journey she had undertaken. It was not merely to win a title or fulfill a duty. It was to embrace the connection between two worlds, to bridge the gap not only between races but between hearts. She had faced doubts, challenges, and trials that had tested her resolve, but through it all, she had remained true to herself. As the stars glittered above Solaria, Layla stood ready, her heart filled with both courage and humility. The future awaited, and she knew that with each step she took, she would walk the path toward unity, carrying with her the hopes and dreams of her people. The quiet halls of Zarlaria's grand palace reverberated with a new sense of purpose as Layla took her first steps as the chosen ambassador. She felt both humbled and energized, though the weight of the responsibility was already settling onto her shoulders. With her selection confirmed, she was briefed on the details of her upcoming journey to Earth, a venture that would require not only her courage, but her resolve to foster a bond strong enough to unite two vastly different worlds. That evening, as the celebrations for her victory faded, Lay was summoned by the elders to receive further guidance. She entered a chamber filled with the council, their faces reflecting a mixture of pride and solemnity. Layla, the head elder, began, "Your task will not be simple. To secure our future, you will need to form a genuine connection with a human partner, one that can endure the trials of time and bring forth a new generation that blends our strengths." Layla nodded, feeling the gravity of his words. She had prepared herself mentally for this bond, but the full significance was daunting. She would have to leave behind everything familiar, entering a world where she would be seen as both an emissary and a stranger. One of the elders stepped forward, her gaze penetrating yet kind. "It is important that you understand, Layla, that the bond is not merely ceremonial, it will be a true partnership. You will have to earn your human counterparts' trust and affection just as they must earn yours. It is a union of hearts, not simply an alliance of convenience." Layla took in their words, feeling the weight of expectation grow. But she was ready. She had faced fears and doubts throughout the competition, and each trial had only strengthened her resolve. She understood the need for mutual respect and had prepared herself for the challenges ahead. But as the discussion continued, Layla couldn't shake a lingering sense of unease. She glanced around the room, and her gaze fell upon Zara, who had been allowed to remain for the briefing, given her role as a finalist. Zara's expression was unreadable, her usual confident demeanor softened by something akin to contemplation. Layla wondered what Zara felt, whether there was resentment or perhaps a reluctant acceptance of the outcome.